In a way, Silicon Valley looks like to be the moon, and Europe it looks like to be the Earth. And I was thinking about this metaphor going back to when the astronauts touched the moon, and they were thinking to take marvelous pictures of the universe, of the moon, of other planets, and then they realized that the most beautiful planet was right there. It was the Earth, and they discovered the blue planet. So I have a question for two politicians. You've been here all the week. I know you've been here several times as part of a delegation, and you're new. This is the first time. So from Romania and Italia, my question is, what is the takeaway from here, looking at Europe, like from the moon, realizing what the Earth, the blue planet is, Europe? Thank you.
Okay, you've already been invited to go to have drinks, and you were promised that this would be very short, so I'm going to be very telegraphic. I have noted some of the, let's say, main ideas or mega trends that I think are interesting takeaways for all of us, policymakers and not only. So a few of the mega trends: blockchain and quantum computers, two of the mega trends of the future. Democratizing artificial intelligence, and artificial intelligence itself democratizing the digital world. Disappearance of driving licenses, that should be interesting. ICOs have a future with some intelligent regulation. I do strongly believe that blockchain and ICO have a good future. Central Eastern Europe, a great reservoir of competitive priced talent. If you spot a Dracula accent, I might have one myself, you should not let that discourage you from investing. You might be losing big time in the medium to long term. You cannot replicate Silicon Valley in Europe, but you can emulate some of its features depending on the local context. We do need to build, this is a desperate need, the digital single market in Europe. Doing away with fragmentation is the most important objective of this, but you have to do that with regulation, with some regulation. If you think about it, it's a paradox in Europe that in order to defragment a fragmented space, various national states and traditions, you do need to put some intelligent regulations in place. And just to take an example from elsewhere, when Japan regulated Bitcoin payments on the 1st of April this year, suddenly the price went up. So the market itself may love regulation when it means clarity and predictability and legal certainty. So it's a bit of a cliche to say regulation by definition is bad. Regulation can be good, and Europe has been liberalizing markets through regulation, among others, while taming them and supporting them to be civilized to people. There are some EU measures which I understand could be successfully copied from Silicon Valley. There's the digital single market, I've mentioned that. A second chance legislation, apparently we're preparing something like that to make at least our legislation, if not our mentality, friendlier to failure. We are terrible at that. Apparently there are some measures, potential measures for better funding for scaling. I still have personal doubts, but I believe the Commission knows what they're saying. We have not found any solution to how to transfer research into business products on a significant scale from our universities. I don't think I have not been able to have any intelligent idea on that, nor have I heard it from others. Nor how to provide, on better scale-ups. I do hope that there is something in the loop from the Commission. And Steve Jobs is the son of a Syrian refugee. This should be an important lesson for both Americans and Europeans nowadays. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. What about you, Brando? It's the first time you've been here 3 days, 4 days, so you come fresh from such a great experience. What are you going to take away?
Well, I can say some things quite in line with what my colleague Sorin has already said, in the sense that I think that one first very clear impression I got from these meetings is the global ambition and the projection of what happens here that sometimes is lacking in Europe. And in my opinion, as Sorin has rightly said already, in Europe we have a big problem of fragmentation of the digital single market. This has been one of our main initiatives in terms of legislative program together with the Commission and the Member States to one challenge to be addressed, because we still have huge problems for our startups, for everyone operating in the digital single market that we are in fact building, to even operate clearly in the 28/27, if UK will leave the European Union, to operate easily. So I see this fact that here, thanks to a lot of specific conditions that we analyzed, everything can have a great ambition from the beginning. It's not just a cultural thing. We discussed a lot about this, the risk-taking culture, the entrepreneurial culture, etc. But I think it's also a matter of how the system works. So I think we need, as it was said, we need to regulate in an intelligent way so that we can promote also with good government policies, good public funding also for some basic research that, I mean, it's clear from this history of the Silicon Valley that some base research was fundamental. Let's think of what happened with the research on defense. And just now, the European Union is promoting some stronger common research on defense, also for dual use, for use also on civilian area. And so things are moving also in this sense, and I think it's something that we must pursue. And at the same time, I want to say that another strong understanding I got from these days is that with all these problems, these innovations that can give opportunity and challenges, they have been already mentioned by Sorin, from the blockchain to the autonomous vehicles. Here we are at the core of this innovation that then irradiates to the rest of the world. These issues can be correctly managed in terms of creating opportunity and managing risks by policymakers if the people, the voters, the citizens understand what we are talking about. This is a big issue because, as was said already, I think by Director De Graaf at the beginning of this conference, 40% of Europeans are considered as digitally illiterate. And so we need a strong investment in digital literacy, because I can tell you from the policymaker side, if people don't understand, they will not support policy solutions that are innovative, that are bridging gaps and creating cooperation at transatlantic level. We have seen that already at the level of acquisition and mergers, we have been already having a strong cooperation between the two sides of the Atlantic. We need to go on in this direction, but to do this, we need support of the people. And to have that, we need to have people understand what are the privacy challenges. We are now in 1 year of Privacy Shield. They need to understand what are the legal implications of the autonomous vehicles. They need some education. I think this is very important from the policymaker side to invest in this, because if we don't have a public that can understand this discussion, it will be difficult to pursue some innovative, friendly policies.
Well, bear with me living here on the moon and looking at the Earth, Europe, but I still have a question quoting Harry Kissinger. Can you provide me the area code to call Europe? I mean, don't you think that you put on the table today great ideas, but the thing is time. As Martin Mikos said very well, 1 million euro in Europe maybe is a lot, but here 1 hour is more than that. So time is very important. Europe needs really policymakers moving faster. We cannot live in that way. I mean, and so what do you think really to bring on the table to make things happen? Because we cannot stay on regulations over innovations, and here it's everything innovations over regulations. You want to make rules, but the time you decide, 27, 28 countries, even the fragmentation of language and culture makes this very complicated. So my question is really, what do you really want to put on the pipeline concretely? I mean, you know, that's it.
I have to be frank. I think that in this case, the best investment is in having better functioning institutions for regulating and governing phenomenons. Because, I mean, economy and the startup environment grows because of private initiative, because of creativity, but then you need to have a society and a framework that can foster it. My opinion is very radical in this sense. I have to be very frank. European Union also on this aspect of completing the digital single market shows its difficulties in terms of being a union of 28 / maybe 27 in the future member states, where the procedure to take decisions is too slow. I'm convinced that we need a stronger capability of deciding for example, common investments at European level to foster more private money for investing, as we have been doing with a pilot, we can say, a project, because it's been relatively small compared to what, for example, Obama administration has been doing, this common investment fund that we have been having in these years in European Union. And these are examples, I can give more, but we don't have time, that together we can be stronger. I'm strongly convicted that European Union needs to do what you said, to be quicker, because time is important. Numbers, quantity, capacity to put resources together is crucial. I think European Union as today is not capable. We need institutional reform to be at the level of the United States, that are a federal state. We are not. So I'm strongly convicted that European Union has to make a step forward.
Thank you so much. Would you like to close? I know we could talk for hours, but just a punchline on the big issue.
Geo-blocking and consumer protections would be two of the building blocks of the single market that we could do immediately as part of a wider package. And it is in the pipeline. It has been happening. So it is part of the digital single market package. And there are areas, I think our brilliant colleague from the Commission gave a few examples today, where European regulation is actually ahead of times rather than always behind the curve. So, you know, we're not that bad by definition. It's a bit of an idée reçue, a received idea that Europe always lags behind with regulation. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. So, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.